Hello everyone, I hope that this finds you well, or at least as well as you can be if you are walking with severe tinnitus. I offer this impromptu, lightly edited video to try and give hope to those of you who have the condition to degrees which are not commonly understood and in ways that many professionals and other people with milder forms of tinnitus can't relate to. I don't feel particularly adept at speaking into a camera, but when I was suffering with the condition, I drew a lot of help on other people sharing their stories, and so it only felt right that I give an account of mine, just in case it helps others. I've also noticed that while there's good material out there for tinnitus, there's a lot less for people who have severe reactive tinnitus, which is what I have currently. I should say at the outset that I'm not going to offer many practical tools, because where it concerns reactive severe tinnitus, it seems the usual rules don't apply. Rather, I just want to offer hope in the sense that if someone like me can now live with this condition, and believe me, I'm the last person you'd ever expect to be able to deal with it, and I'll go into that in a little bit. But I longed to hear of stories of others with very loud, very severe reactive tinnitus, sleeping naturally to it, functioning reasonably well with it, and doing life as they used to some degree. So I offer this as some kind of example of how, given enough time, the brain can learn to adapt, and you can live in a way you never thought possible, perhaps at the beginning stages of severe tinnitus. When tinnitus began for me in 2020, it wasn't so severe. It was actually, I now realise, fairly moderate. At the time, of course, I didn't think it was. Whoever experiences tinnitus for the first time, well, I don't want to speak for everyone, but most of the time it feels catastrophic. It's new, it's an unwanted guest, it never stops. And so for weeks, it was hell on earth, but I did become accustomed to that initial signal. However, in 2021, for the very first time in life, I had repeating ear infections. In fact, I had a whole year of recurring double ear infections in both my ears. And as part of that process, I was given microsuction. Between the double ear infection and the microsuction, my tinnitus went from moderate to extremely loud. It sounded like, and still sounds like, I want to be clear that this is still going on, the sound itself hasn't changed. A cacophony of drills, tones, shrieks, like some kind of unwanted industrial symphony. I like industrial music, but this wasn't, I didn't select this. And for the first few years, it was utterly unbearable, and I couldn't stop thinking about it or obsessing about it. And I couldn't sleep naturally. I want to be completely open in this video. None of this is planned. That's probably obvious by now, but I resorted to methods I never thought I would resort to in life. I would drink bottles of red wine just to induce sleep. I took Ambien, or in the UK we call it Zolpidem, and various other sleeping pills, herbal remedies, and anything you might think of that could work didn't work. And I tried every single more reasonable method possible. Basically, natural sleep seemed utterly impossible. And the reason I'm sharing this is because a lot of the torture was I thought it would never be possible. I thought, quite reasonably to me at the time, this is like trying to sleep next to an industrial site or a dentist drill in your ear. How could anyone sleep to this? It's not physically possible for a human to sleep to this degree of noise, because it was really a choice between not sleeping night after night or taking something to sleep. I want to add as an aside that if you are using medication to help you sleep through severe tinnitus, there's no judgment here. But I also want to say that change can happen there, and you can learn to sleep. The brain can learn to sleep. Albeit through unconventional methods, you can learn to sleep without that help. But yeah, I want to make it clear, no judgment. You don't need, on top of what's already happening, on top of the difficulty of tinnitus and not sleeping, the extra anxiety of worrying about taking meds. Honestly, sometimes it's the lesser of two evils. I'm not a doctor, I don't mean that as medical advice, but more as a comfort. Now, early on in my tinnitus journey, for the first year, like I said, it was moderate, and I could use sound therapy, or actually lots of environmental recordings, to enable sleep. It would be a case of put some cricket noises on, lie down, and sleep. Natural sleep came. But once severe reactive tinnitus joined the scene, or once my original tinnitus upgraded to this whole new degree of terror, I couldn't use sound therapy or any kind of noise or masking to sleep. The tinnitus level simply rose above it, it competed with it. Prior to this, something like residual inhibition happened. That's where the tinnitus signal is inhibited by external sound. Post ear infections and microsuction, no masking worked. The tinnitus is also incredibly variable. I wake up to a different sound every morning. Granted, it's kind of on a cycle, but the cycle is so long that I still can't work out when I'm going to get what. And so planning anything was difficult for years, because I might wake up one day to a less terrible sound, and then the next day will be a terrible sound. During that 6-year period, it's been 6 years, hasn't it? My maths is terrible, since 2020. I occasionally got natural sleep when I woke up on a lesser signal, but never on a loud signal. And this is all relative. When I'm talking lesser or loud, it's all pretty awful in terms of the sound itself. But what I want to say, and where hope comes in, is that in terms of years, if you think in terms of years and not months, and that might sound unfortunate, but if someone had told me 6 years ago that one day, if I'd heard someone tell me, you can sleep, you can function to even the loudest sounds, if someone had told me then, I would have taken it and run with it, and it would have offered hope. Of course, I understand if you're irritated listening to me right now. Perhaps the sound is so traumatic to you that you really don't want to hear some guy say, it's not about the sound. And that's not what I'm saying. Of course the sound is relevant. It's far easier to habituate to a quieter sound, a less reactive sound, a sound that's maskable, than it is to a shrieking cacophony. But the hope I want to offer is that even a shrieking cacophony, even that can be something the brain becomes hardened to, bored of, and exhibits less anxiety around. Now, I began being able to sleep to this tinnitus very unexpectedly on a trip to France. I'll tell the story because it's disturbing and amusing. I was with two friends and I had ordered some sleeping pills because I didn't want to be a complete basket case in front of them. And they didn't arrive on time. So I still went on the trip because I thought, well, perhaps I'll get a less loud signal on this trip. I just had this kind of faith, but that wasn't to be. On the first night, it was loud and it was 6 a.m. and I still couldn't sleep. My plan then was to literally fly home the next day, a whole 10 days early. And I thought, this is exactly why I shouldn't bother trying to do things. This condition has won. Very mysteriously though, come 8 to 9 a.m, I did fall asleep. And this was like ammunition, this was evidence, this was proof that the brain, that my soul could actually sleep, could find rest in even the most extreme of noise. And once that happened, I had this whole new hope. From then on, I began to have more and more nights of natural sleep. And to be honest, sleep was key because it's one thing trying to deal with such a severe noise and such a reactive noise when you're well slept. It's quite another when your brain is fried by chemicals and you haven't slept for hours. Once that happened, I began noticing that whatever sound I woke up to was less and less bothersome to me. It went from sheer terror to this is really annoying, but I'm going to get on with my day. And today I can say, in all honesty, that though what's going on right now is a horrendous sound objectively, if, as people with chronic pain say often, if someone else were to experience the pain they have to endure every single day, they would check themselves into A&E. It would be shocking. This sound is shocking objectively. If someone were to hear it for the first time, they would say, how can you manage? Which is not actually a very helpful question, because it's like, what choice do I have? I also want to make it clear that things are not entirely normal and it is a disability. So over here I've got these earmuffs. These are weak earmuffs. They reduce sound by about minus 26 dB. And these are a minus 36 dB deal, much stronger. Whenever I go out, I have to wear them. I know audiologists and ENTs say things like, just live life as normal. But I learned the hard way that that's not true. If you have severe reactive tinnitus, it's like walking around with a broken limb or with a knee issue. You don't run a marathon when your knees are telling you that you're in trouble. And apart from the year of double infections and the increase caused by microsuction, I've had increases because I took that advice and tried to do things normally, and evidently my audio system didn't like it. So the way I function is I can't go to live events anymore. I can't play live music anymore. That's because even this protection, even the strongest protection, even if you wear foam earplugs and those on top, bass frequencies can travel through your body. There's bone conduction. I know friends who don't leave the house with severe reactive tinnitus because they don't want to look silly. But to be honest, no one minds. I simply explain to them I'm not being rude. I don't wear earplugs. I explain to them because it makes my voice boom in my head and I can't speak properly with people, so I have to wear earmuffs. And I've never had any trouble. The only issue is at airports, where sometimes the people in baggage claim don't quite understand why I have to keep them on. And I do have to keep them on because the banging and the noises there will cause a tinnitus spike. But apart from having to give up amplified sound in the live arena and giving up concerts, largely I do everything I used to do. And I put that down to a number of factors, but really we have to think in terms of years, as I said before. And rather than inspire doom, I hope that inspires hope. But also we need to encourage one another that this is possible. I mentioned earlier that I'm the least likely person that this could happen to, and that's because even before tinnitus, I was a sensitive person. Many things could easily make me anxious. I already had insomnia between 2019, even before tinnitus. And so, in terms of character profile, I really am the last person who should be this used to it by now. But I can say that I am. I don't like it. It's not fun. But given how loud it is, I'm entirely thankful that I'm in the place I'm in now. Again, I'm sorry I can't offer more practical advice because if I'm honest, all the practical advice I got was useless. I don't mean to be rude to ENTs and audiologists, but most of what they say works probably if your tinnitus is moderate and maskable. Like I said, where it's unmaskable and severe, you have to work out your own system of thriving within that situation. But I want to say again that that is possible. I will, though, mention a single bit of practical advice that did help, and that is the acronym RAIN. It can be formulated various ways, but I'm going to read one now that worked for me, which is R, recognize, A, allow or accept, I, investigate, and N, non-identification. Recognize means you simply notice what is happening right now. A feeling, a thought, a bodily sensation. In this case, it's tinnitus. Allow is letting the experience to be what it is without trying to fix it, suppress it, or judge it. A kind of, okay, this is here. Investigate means gently explore the experience with curiosity. And N is non-identification, like I said, which is respond with care and compassion. This kind of acceptance and sitting with a sound helped me much more than any attempts to pretend it wasn't there. And if anything, it sounds paradoxical, but I was told, don't talk about the tinnitus because then you'll be re-alerted to it. I didn't find that helpful at the stage of severe tinnitus because it's so loud. Not talking about it and trying to forget it doesn't mean it's going to recede into the background. A sound that's constantly changing, a sound that is this extreme, doesn't tend to retreat into the background as much as we'd like. And so this acronym helped me acknowledge it, speak about it freely, treat it with a degree of curiosity, and I don't mean obsess over it, but rather than trying to escape it, look at it and let a sound be a sound. I'm a musician and sound designer, so I am intrigued by sound. Maybe that's a bit easier for me. But as ugly as the sound is and as unwanted as it is, through practice you can achieve a larger degree of regarding it with interest than you think. If anyone wants, I'm going to share a more technical and formal and prepared video after this. But I wanted to put this out while I had the idea and to see if there's any further interest. If there is interest, I'll happily do a more prepared formal video exploring in more detail some of how I recovered. There's also a lot I didn't go into in terms of personal faith and metaphysical views and other aspects of how I've come to view reality that really did help me, and it would be dishonest to pretend they didn't. Likewise with what I said before in terms of the more technical aspects of how I got through this, I would happily share on those again if there's any interest. I will say, keeping it as broad as possible, that having a wider view and regarding life as something to live for others primarily is what got me through. Because I don't want to play down just how difficult severe tinnitus is. It will make you question everything. It will make you question whether you want to live at all. I now really, really do want to live. I have something to live for. But if you find yourself in a place where you don't want to go on, then please reach out. I'm always happy to help someone in that position. I don't care how bad you feel, how severe it is, and how you're dealing with it. I'd like to offer some help. Again, I'm not a professional, but sometimes all we need is someone who will listen to us. And I simply also want to say that you're doing really well if you're still here. For some people, it's a miracle if they got through another day. For some people, getting out of bed and doing even the most basic functions is worth celebrating. And if you have got through this far with severe tinnitus, then you should celebrate. Thank you so much for listening.